Call the meeting to order, please.
And Commissioner Castagna,
Here.
Commissioner Wall. Oh, you're
He's muted.
I see you.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Peak,
Here.
Commissioner Evans,
Here.
Vice Chair Witowski,
Present.
Chair O'Neill,
Here.
and Commissioner Sovereign is absent at the moment.
Thank you. It never stops. Phone calls. So we have minutes from the last meeting. Are there any comments on minutes? We have a
move approval.
motion to approve.
I move approval.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Is that John?
No, that was Bob.
Bob, thank you very much.
Okay, and Commissioner Castagna,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Commissioner Wachowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Wall,
Yes.
Chair O'Neill.
Abstain?
Okay, thank you.
So that's the end of the consent agenda. Is there any public to make comments on any topics not on our agenda today?
And we encourage members of the public to join our meeting via Zoom Gov, a secure service for use by government agencies. You'll be connected live in real time to the meeting. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with an approximate 10-second delay and on Comcast channel 25 with an approximate 90-second delay. If you plan to make a public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone and ensure you join in time to accommodate the delay. To join the meeting on Zoom, use the link or phone number on the Museums and Cultural Arts Commission agenda at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial toll-free 833-568-8884. Enter meeting ID 161-622-2299, followed by the pound sign. If prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment, please raise your hand using Zoom, or if you are connected by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. And at this time, there are no public comments.
Thank you, ma'am. So the first item on our agenda is to approve the subcommittee recommendation on the disposition of San Xavier Cannery warehouse objects. An interesting item. Inga, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. So the committee has worked, the subcommittee has worked very, very diligently. Many trips out to the warehouse looking at the items. We have, the committee has Tim Thomas as an advisor because he's a fisheries expert and he knows the history of our canneries here on the peninsula and even beyond. And then also Jordan, our artifact specialist, did a lot of careful measuring of the items that were of interest. But above and beyond, Bob Evans has put together a comprehensive inventory with links to photographs and so forth. So that is in your packet on packet page 9. And it's color coded for those of you who have the ability to see in color based on what the committee had thought was worth retaining and things that either we couldn't identify because of their condition or perhaps they're just not in the warehouse anymore. So anyway, after a very lengthy series of discussions, the conclusion was, and I want the committee members, of course, to chime in because it was difficult and I might not have captured it correctly, but given the anticipated cost of moving the items and also the cost of storing the items, like renting a potential big storage cargo thing, the value just didn't seem to be there for the commission, and especially because we know as a city, we're not going to be setting up a fisheries museum or a cannery museum. So the hope is that there are other organizations that would be interested in taking some of these objects, and then the understanding that anything that's not taken would then be removed as part of the demolition of the building.
Thank you. And I second the amount of work done by the members that Inga just indicated is substantial, and we wouldn't have gotten to the conclusion we've come to without a lot of back and forth, a lot of research by Jordan on finding these things. I could not have done what Bob did, all that computer work to make it accessible to us. And of course, no one can provide us the information that Tim did, except Tim. So it's unfortunate in that we have all these artifacts, they're available, and there's just seems to be no one available who wants them at the moment or who can take them. A couple of items we have found that the Tim will take for the Japanese Cultural Museum, and Point Sur would take one if it's available to us. They're appropriate to both locations, but that seems to be it. We had one connection with a group. Did that pan out?
So yes, I've spoken with Judy Proud, who is on the building committee for the Italian Heritage Society of Monterey Bay. And she's spoken with Tim as well. And she would like to see the objects in the warehouse to see if there's something that they could use for their Italian Heritage museum that they're planning. And so I just need to talk with Tim offline about some times that she suggested and see if we can get together at the warehouse and see what she might be able to accept on their behalf.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Inga, I missed that. Who did you talk to?
So it's Judy Proud. She's on the board of the Italian Heritage Society of Monterey Bay. And she's on the committee that's discussing a building for the Heritage Society.
Oh, okay. Did you have a chance to look at my email where I wondered if we would also contact, I mean, I think the subcommittee did a great job in looking at the realities, but I wonder if we could get some of the artifacts either to the Cannery Row Foundation or the Monterey Bay Aquarium, or if neither one of those works, to the purported owner, the developer of the museum.
So the aquarium has said no. We haven't checked with the Cannery Row Foundation. I know that the Cannery Row folks are affiliated with the Italian Heritage Society, so that might be, we might be able to reach them in that way. And then the I know that Bob Follis had offered the warehouse as a place to store things, but because the ownership of the property is in dispute, we're not able to work with one of the litigants as a city.
Send it to all the litigants. No, I'm serious. I mean, I would hate to see the artifacts just destroyed. And if there are two purported owners of the property, send it to both of them and say, come and pick it up. It's like a garage sale. No?
I don't know. I'd have to check with our city attorney about that.
Well, if I remember the discussion, Bob did connect. Did you connect with both or just one fella, Bob?
I only talked to Bob Follis.
So
he was enthusiastic about keeping them, but and was willing to use stow hands, but then the city said, well, but he doesn't, currently the ownership is in litigation. And Bob Follis thinks he's going to win, but it may take 2 years for that to happen. And he was willing to and interested in having them moved into Stonehands, but and put out a call to all of his followers to see if any of them could help. And we got one forklift driver that volunteered, but doesn't have a forklift. And then the city said, well, we can't put things in Stonehands because he doesn't officially own it at this point. Also, there are several items that we were going to keep that didn't get mentioned for possible positioning along the rec trail, and that includes one or more of the baskets and the mooring buoy, and possibly a couple of tanks so that we could fully restore a fish hopper so that it would be complete. But beyond that, though, the rest are, I think it's really unfortunate the city is saying sort of point blank, we're never going to have a fisheries museum when and of course it would cost a lot of money to keep this material in order to put it in that museum whenever it might happen, if it ever happens. And so, it's a gamble in effect. And that part is, I think, is really disappointing, but that's.
And that's something that I've said, and I'm speaking, of course, in my role as the library museums manager, but also with the way the city's finances are and have been, and the future of the city's finances, I just don't see that as a reality. And the items were received in 1997, and if there had been a clear indication on the museum's part, on the city's part, that this was a plan for the future, that they wanted to build a museum themselves, I think we would have heard some of that before, and we haven't. I think the idea was that the owners of this property eventually would be putting together a museum.
Well, Inga, the city would never volunteer because, as you just said, the developers were going to put it on.
Yeah.
I would agree with Bob that we need a Cannery Row fishery / museum, but everybody expected the developers to do that as part of their condition of approval.
Well, and there was a maritime museum.
That's different.
Yeah.
Anyway, would it make any difference if we approached the other litigant to see if that person is as willing as Bob is? And then maybe we could, between the two of them, find a place just to put them until the litigation is over.
Or John, I think that's a good point. Or we could ask the other litigant, would he mind that the stuff be stored at Stonehands regardless of who's the owner? Because we don't know who the owner / developer will be.
And one of them has said that he would take them if he wins the litigation. So if the other one would make that commitment, then we at least have a case for saving them. I subscribe to your opinion that it's just a shame to get rid of all these artifacts because so far we're still in litigation. Tim points out, though, he made a good point the last time we met, which I think was 2 days ago, that a lot of this stuff would probably be available if somebody wanted to find it. Tim, maybe you can just give us a comment on what you said on how the materials moved to Africa and they might be available.
Right, so most of that equipment that's in the warehouse, not all of it, but most of it is old reduction equipment. Most of it is in pretty bad condition. And if I were a museum curator today and I wouldn't use any of it in my museum just because of its condition. And it's easier to find similar pieces, even some that probably came from Monterey. So as most of you already know, that when the fishery collapsed in the 50s, a guy named Wesley Dodge actually bought up all that equipment and sold it to canneries in South Africa, where we actually were working. Some of that stuff was working up to 20 years ago. And so, I mean, it costs money to do that, to bring that stuff back, but that stuff is available out there. And I can speak a little bit about the Canero Foundation, by the way, because I work with them quite a bit. I'm not on their board, but I do work with them. They don't have any physical space, nor are they in the mindset to build a physical space to put a museum in. So, but I would. Thought is because the Canero Foundation now is being run by the Canero Company, so you might check with them. I mean, they may have space to store some of that stuff if they're interested in it. But again, as I mentioned, the equipment is in pretty bad condition. There are some really nice pieces that definitely could be used, but 90% of it is difficult.
So Tim, let me just ask you, so if you were a museum curator, you were saying you wouldn't be able to use these things because of the condition that they're in.
Right.
And so what?
I mean, you could.
It's just a matter of it would cost a lot of money to restore them?
Yeah, I think some of it could be restored. It would be expensive to do that, but majority of that stuff is beyond restorable. It just is. I mean, that's just the nature of that kind of thing. I mean, it's just sitting out in that warehouse, like you said, since 1997, and it's rusty, and that's what happens.
If
It hasn't been in use.
There are a few pieces. Two I think I could recall. Number 42 or 44. Anyway, there's a whole group in the 40s that were for separating the oil from the reduction process. So there was one unit there, I think, that might be useful in a museum because it was complete. And then there was another one, I've forgotten what number it was, that was bright red and had a lid that closed over it. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Right.
But at least those two pieces, a lot of the big pieces, I agree with Tim, are in pretty bad shape and would take a good deal of reconstruction. But I think that there, again, the mooring ball could certainly go along the rec trail, and a basket probably could go along the rec trail. Tim pointed out that there's one already in the parking lot. I think it's David and it's I don't know, Irving. I guess it's Irving. And No, it's actually David because it's across from it's David and Wave. But that's not very visible. It might be nice to have one along the rec trail, maybe near the existing fish hopper. So that I think we might save a very small collection that certainly could go in one shipping container if that's where they're going to go, or into a relatively small space.
There also is a very large copper vat that was used to dispense tomato sauce, which is also a nice piece that's price savable. So,
yeah.
Of the list that Bob put together, we've identified a number of items that are missing and a number of other items that should not be retained for a variety of reasons. So the whole list is not what we're talking about today. As part of our recommendation, since they're missing or completely unusable, we would recommend to the city that they get rid of them. It's just the subset, which I'm guessing is somewhere between 40 to 60% of the list, that might be usable to someone. And I agree with Tim, if we were doing a proper museum indoors, that this may be the hard way to go. On the other hand, if you're doing some other kind of presentation, having the original equipment is worthwhile. And if you were fortunate enough to have volunteers, it could make it look presentable, but not usable. But that's up to whoever's going to do this. It's just that some of it would be useful. And we've identified a few pieces that we would like the city to keep and display. Is that a good characterization?
And I think that, yes, John, I think that's excellent. And I think that the Italian Heritage Society of Monterey Bay, maybe we could especially recommend those 3 pieces that were pointed out: the centrifuge, the red item that has a lid on it, and the big tomato sauce vat. Maybe they would be interested in those pieces.
And anything else they want.
Yeah.
And perhaps if there are items that they don't want, could we open it up to others? As Bill mentioned, we should talk to some people on Cannery Row. Is there anybody else that we could make this available to, even in the public, just so they'll take it out of the warehouse?
I have a couple of questions. Do we have a deadline to get the stuff out of there?
Yes, so the items be removed by August 1st, and our recommendation has to be approved by City Council, and City Council only is meeting once during the month of July, and the meeting date is July 6th. And so this is why we need to have a recommendation so that it can get onto the council agenda. And just as a reminder, with regard to the recommendation, following the art and artifact collection policy, anything that we want to de-accession, even though these items weren't accessioned, anything that the commission suggests we not retain, that recommendation needs to go to council. So for instance, with John's summary, we could say all of the items that were in really poor condition or were missing or unidentifiable, we're recommending to council be removed. And then the items that we know JACL and the Point Sur Lighthouse we're recommending to be removed. We could say any items that the Italian Heritage Society would like to take, we recommend go to the Italian Heritage Society. And then we could say, and then anything else that we can find a recipient for, we recommend be taken, something like that. I think that would probably be a satisfactory recommendation to council.
Another question I have leading up to my question is, we're not going to get all this done by the deadline. So the stuff that is left there becomes part of the demolition.
Correct.
And do they know that? And are they going to charge us for that?
So they are going to ask the folks that are walking through and putting together their bids, they're going to ask them to include what is the cost of removing the items. And so we flagged the items that we knew for sure we weren't going to recommend be retained. But whether or not we are going to be charged is not entirely clear. But we know that any cost of moving the items and any cost of storing the items we're going to be charged for. So I think it's anticipated there'll be some costs regardless.
We talked about cost in terms of moving things, and from the minutes of the last meeting, I think the figure was $12,000 to move them there in 97, at least according to the minutes, right?
Mhm.
And we figured it was at least twice that to move them now, right? So we're talking over $20,000, one way or the other, to get rid of these things we didn't ask for.
The item that I was talking about is item number, oh, sorry, my clock is going off.
Time.
Item number SX30 was the red thing that has a lid on it.
Okay.
Cookie jar.
And the other thing, I wonder, anybody interested in the barrels? Are they of interest or not?
I recall that Tim wasn't sure that they were really part of the reduction plant or the cannery, that there might be being stored by some other group.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of small items that might be useful at some point.
And there were the few items that we want to keep as a city and put on display, maybe on the trail. So we're at least reducing the amount of items, but that's going to cost us to move them to the location we want. Unless somebody would volunteer to do that.
Well, and you can't just move them. You have to set them up and
Yeah,
install
yeah.
them. Yeah.
Right, and I think we're committed to having some interpretation as well.
But
So,
our job right now is just to come up with a clear recommendation to the city council that's vague enough where the particular items could go on one list or another. Is that correct? Okay.
well said.
Yeah, well stated.
Was that vague enough?
Vague enough. So I like what Inga formalized in her statement. That might work. Do we have that?
I have one more question. One more
Place?
question.
Yes.
How do we get, so if we want to put some along the rec trail, do we have to get the city to say yes to that in a separate proposal? And how many do you think we want to take for that?
So my understanding is you need the coastal commission's approval as well.
Oh, Lordy.
To put things along the rec trail. So it would be a situation where we would be storing things temporarily in another location until we get that permission, and then of course the installation and so forth. So there would be costs involved.
And we don't have another location, right?
So if it's just a couple of items, I had thought, and I'm looking at Jordan, that we might be able to fit them into the east garage where the museums and cultural division already has some other objects stored, such as the angels that are used during the winter holidays.
Mm.
Oh, how much
Okay.
room is in there?
Bob?
I can't hear Jordan, but I think you're speaking. Oh, we can't hear you.
Maybe he's
Not muted, so it's
Oh,
maybe his microphone's not on.
Say in the interim that the items we're going to put on the rec trail don't need interior storage because they're going to be stored outside. So
True.
So it's possible that, so the Corp Yard has said they really don't have space to store 18,000
1,000 square feet.
of
Yeah.
items, but they probably could store a couple of items outdoors at the Corp Yard as well.
Can you hear me now?
Put tarps over.
Yes, we can hear you, Jordan.
So there's not a lot of storage space in the parking garage. We could probably fit, if we are to keep any specific item, we could probably fit one. And that just depends on if we have a pallet jack or someone to take it down there, because you will need a pallet, and if it'll fit through the doors. So I don't think the mooring ball will fit down there. Of the items to retain that we talked about, I think a basket, one, maybe two baskets.
Something else to keep in mind when you think about all this stuff is, luckily, there are lots and lots of photographs of this equipment in operation, but even more importantly, there actually is a 1943 color film that was produced by the Hogan Cannery that shows the entire process, from start to finish. It's probably the best document that exists of how those canneries operated. That was in the collection of the Maritime Museum. I got it from the daughter of the woman who was Newt Hogan's secretary. It was given to her. It was the master print of that film. And then I transferred that film to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. They have it, actually. But the deal with the aquarium is that they have to, it has to be open to the public to use. So that is there, and that's what we do have that. That's a wonderful artifact.
Have notes.
So the amount of storage space, the amount
Go
of
ahead.
storage space we need is huge. 18,000 square feet. I was just doing a rough calculation. Something like 130 feet by 130 feet.
Yeah.
So where are you going to get that? How are you going to pay for it?
It'd be 30 by 60.
30 by 60? I don't think so. That's
Well,
30 by 600,
30 by
right?
60 is 1,800.
So the existing warehouse is not nearly that big.
Oh, is it 1,800, not 18,000?
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. You said 18,000. That's, seems huge. 1,800 would be
Yeah, that'd be big.
more believable.
Okay,
Well, I think
1,800.
we're down to, what do we got? We got a mooring ball, a copper hopper, SX30 and that's XS44 or whatever it is. That's about it, I think, plus baskets.
But for the city, I think we were just suggesting retaining a mooring ball and one basket. Hopefully,
I think one solution among many possibilities would be to recommend to the city that we retain those two items and then leave the rest to be part of the demolition. I think that's all we can do. Yeah,
Unless someone will take them. In the
yeah,
interim.
but time is against you. You're not going to get this by August 1st. Get somebody to agree and the range that they're in to remove it. It's just not going to work. I think.
It depends how badly they want them, I think. Our discussion has been amongst us talking with, say, the Italian group, that they have access to movers. So if they really wanted something,
That's a metaphor.
but I think it's realistic to expect that on the August 1st date, there's going to be some stuff in there and we're going to lose it. And we've come to that realization. Maybe we don't like it, but that's the way it's going to be. So back to whatever Inga formulated as vague enough to send to the city council. Do we have that written down, or was Francesca making notes maybe? Or it's recorded, of course. So how do we proceed? Do we want to get that written down and circulate so everybody can look at it?
I think we need a motion and I think right now it's sort of in the ether.
Yeah.
Well, let me try a motion and see if this works. So I recommend that we concur with the subcommittee recommendation on the items that will be saved by the city. That we also encourage the Italian Heritage Society and the Japanese American Club to take as many items as possible before the building is demolished. And we encourage other interested parties to take the remaining items before the demolition. Am I just leaving it wide open? If Cannery Road Company would want some, if the purported owners would agree to take some and store it at Stohan's, that's up to them. All we do is notify them and say it's there. We have these 2 items, Heritage Society and Japanese, you go first, take whatever you want, and then open it up.
I think that's the longest motion I've ever heard of.
Those other sentences, John's, were comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it.
The motion ended with the first period.
Well, anyway, I'll second the motion.
Great. Okay, I would just like to ask you to amend that to include Pointer State Historic Park, which has identified a useful
Sure.
item there that could go in the display down there.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Does that seem to capture what we needed to do and what is in the realm of possibility here? Okay, so we have a motion. It's been seconded. Is there any public comment?
And to clarify, Vice Chair Wachowski, the motion you said ended after the first period. So it's the
Yes.
recommendation that we concur with the subcommittee recommendation on the items that will be saved by the city.
And then we offer
And now we encourage the Italian Heritage Society and Japanese American.
and the Pointer to take any items before the demolition of the warehouse, which is August 1st. And we
Okay.
encourage all other interested parties to also review and take any items before August 1st. And just leave that last sentence general, just say interested parties. So we
Okay.
have the city, then we have the 3 specific groups, and then we
Yeah.
have a general statement in case there's somebody else out there.
Okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
I think we'll need to go through the spreadsheet in that case and mark the 2 items that the city is retaining and change the retain indication on all the other items that are not going to be retained. Maybe it's not with the orange X, which says basically we're going to demolish those, or they weren't found or whatever. But there needs to be essentially a 3rd category, it seems to be, in order to be clear about what exactly we're retaining, because right now it says retain on a lot of things.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
we're talking about only recommending 2 things to
Right.
be retained.
Offer, could be offer or of interest, something like that.
Yeah, offered or adoptable.
I think offered would capture it.
Okay.
And we don't need to put anything about the cost of demolition in our recommendation to council. Is that just understood that there's a cost?
I think that would be included in the staff report that goes to the council, but I don't think we have to put it in the recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and for any members of the public who would like to make a comment on this matter, please raise your Zoom hand. If you would like to call in, please dial toll-free 833-568-8864. Enter meeting ID 161-622-2299, followed by the pound sign. If prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound. A reminder that There's an approximate 10-second delay if viewing on YouTube and a 90-second delay if viewing on Comcast channel 25. And there are no public comments.
Thank you, Francesca. Then back to the board. Any final comments before we vote? Would you please take the vote, Francesca?
You, Castagna,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Wall,
Yes.
Witowski,
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Inga, can I make one more request? When this goes to the city council, could you please hopefully put this on as a public appearance item, not as a consent calendar? And I would hope the subcommittee members and hopefully Tim Thomas can appear at that meeting and speak just as they spoke so eloquently today. So it should be a public appearance item, and hopefully those 3 or 4 members can attend.
And
I'll ask.
whoever made the motions should go.
Oh, no, the subcommittee is far more equipped than I am.
You're far more eloquent, however.
You have connections.
Okay,
I'll make that request. Okay.
so we're done with that one. Finally, till it comes back to us.
That's right.
I'll get the spreadsheet, the revised spreadsheet to Inga today.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
So on to our next item on the agenda today, and that's approve a subcommittee recommendation regarding reopening
I think-
Colton Hall Museum.
Yes. And we just said goodbye to Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay, so I'll just quickly summarize. The subcommittee met, and artifact specialist Leninger put together a chart for us to look at. What would it cost to operate the museum 7 days a week, and a number of other options down to 2 days a week. And subcommittee discussed different possibilities and came up with a recommendation that during the summer months, the museum, and we also looked into volunteers, and subcommittee concluded that it would be preferable to have the highly trained and experienced and affordable docents, paid docents, rather than starting a new volunteer training program when we're so short-staffed as it is. And so the recommendation is for the summer months, be open 4 days a week, and then starting in September, being open just on the weekends, with the proviso that if the economy really turns around rapidly and it looks like the city's doing much better than anticipated, that be revisited, and especially that it be revisited for the second half of the year, so from January through June. And then there was also the very generous offer to reach into our pockets and donate the funds that it would take to reopen in the last 2 weekends of June. And so then I offered to take the recommendation to the city manager prior to taking it to the commission. And the city manager said yes to, originally said no, but then said yes to the July through December proposal, and then said no to the generous offer to donate funds, because since the city as a whole is trying to reopen all of the offices in the month of July, he thought it would be too difficult to have museums get ahead of everybody else. And then also knowing that we have such limited staff, and there are going to be steps needed to get things up and running, that it's better just to wait till July.
Inga, do you agree with that?
So I do realize that I seem to have a limited capacity. I have a large appetite and a limited capacity.
So you,
And
I mean,
and
you know, I don't
between
want to
me
be,
and Jordan, yeah, Jordan
I
and
don't want
I
to be too blunt, but the
sure.
city manager seems to be an obstacle on doing anything. So I want to discount his, but if you feel you have too much going on before July 1st, I can understand that. Because, I mean, these people are experienced, they've been doing it. These people do not need to be re-educated, right? The two,
Right.
yeah. But if you feel you have a lot going on, then I can understand that.
Well, the other thought we had is that we want to make sure we advertise it appropriately, and that usually takes a little bit more time than we have. So we want to say grand reopening and make sure we get the word out. So
But you didn't answer my question. So you have too much on, your plate?
I have too much on my plate with trying to handle some other things. So yeah, like opening the library.
Would the grand reopening for the museum be in July then?
Yeah, and it would be 4th of July weekend.
4th
which
of
I
July
think
weekend.
Is,
Okay.
is nice.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion on this? We need a motion.
I move we approve the subcommittee's recommendation.
But the
Second it.
subcommittee's recommendation included opening in June, so.
Well, that's not. Make it July.
Well, also, am I right? Am I wrong? But it seems like the Thursday before 4th of July weekend is technically June 30th. So does that mean that the first opening will actually begin on just be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Thursday's the 1st.
What's that? Oh,
Thursday's
Thursday
the
is the
1st of July.
Never
Yeah.
mind. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Indeed.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope,
Somebody
So we-
second?
We have a
I
second.
second.
Better even. Okay. Do we have public comment before we vote?
If you'd like to make a public comment, please dial toll-free 833-568-8864. Enter meeting ID 161-622-2299, followed by the pound sign. To raise your hand, please dial *9. If you are connected here on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand. There are no public comments.
Thank you. Then we'll come back to the commission and vote on the motion that's been seconded.
Oh,
Okay.
I have a question about that motion. Is the motion just to open in July? So it's not,
Okay. Castagna,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Peak,
Yes.
Wall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Witowski,
Yes.
Chair O'Neill.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Okay.
So that's the agenda, I believe. Do we have any commissioner comments?
Well, I want to thank all my subcommittee colleagues on both subcommittees for their diligent assistance and participation. I mean, there was a lot involved in the inventory, and certainly a lot of numbers involved in deciding about Colton Hall. And of course, Jordan has been a big help through all of this. I would recommend him for a raise.
I second the motion.
See what Hans says about that.
Should we vote on that, Jordan?
Maybe that's where the commission has to dig into our own pockets.
Yes. Any other comments from the commissioners before we go? I'd like to also thank the members on both commissions. Seems like these are two items that have required more work of the commission than others I've observed, and it doesn't seem like we've only been meeting for 55 minutes. It seems like we've been working for weeks on this thing. Glad we're done with it. and I appreciate everybody's efforts on it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, John.